Well, what can I say? I was blown away by the response to my secret Ravelry Features video. I knew as soon as I started filming that I was probably going to want to do a part 2. And then you showered my comment section with tips and comments and questions and enthusiasm, and there was no more probably about it. So this is part 2. Just for clarity and disclosure, I understand that these are not secret tips about Ravelry. The word secret is just a little YouTube title shortcut for I'm pretty sure I've got something to show you that you haven't seen before. Secret is shorter. Follow me to the interwebs. Let's take a look at some more hidden Ravelry gems. All right, no messing around. We are just going to dive right in. First of all, we're going to explore your excellent Ravelry tips. I have organized these into categories just to make things a little bit simpler, and so I'm not jumping around all over the place as we go through these. We're going to start with more tips on searching for patterns. First off, in relation to my big secret from the last video, which is get in there and look at other people's projects before you buy or decide to use a pattern, you added some really excellent ideas for amping up that particular tip even more. More than one person noted that it's not only is it helpful to go and look at the projects, but it's helpful to go back and look at the very first projects that were done after that design was published, and possibly even look at the test knit projects. So let's go take a look and see what we find when we do that. I am going to pick on Tin Can Knit's Love Note for this little exercise. So let's just go right into Love Note. And you can see on Love Note, here we are on the details page. Up at the top, either here, we can go to the projects. There are over 13,000 Love Note sweaters. Or we could jump to it down here. There's 2 ways to get there, but let's use the tabs at the top just to make things simpler. So we're going to click on the projects. And then what we're going to do is we're going to this area of select filters, and we are going to select all helpful projects. You can also select projects with notes, but let's really drill this down to the notes that we already know from somebody else are helpful. So we're going to select all helpful projects, and then we're going to go to the last page. So right now we're on page 1, page 2, ... 44 pages. So let's go to page 44 and take a look at what's here. These are going to be the earliest projects that were knit that included helpful notes. So you can go straight into these ones rather than having to open 500 different projects and read the notes to find what you're looking for. This will take you directly to the most helpful notes for this particular pattern. And you can see for Love Note with 13,000 projects, 44 pages of helpful notes is pretty darn good. You're probably not going to read them all. Now, in this particular search, I haven't actually been able to locate any of the test knitters. At least no one has identified themselves as a test knitter. Sometimes people do. Sometimes they'll put test note in their name of their project, but nobody did here. But these are definitely some of the earliest ones. A viewer pointed out some very good reasons for going to look for test knits is that they will be knit, generally speaking, with fewer modifications, and there's often a test knit in each of the sizes, so you'd be able to go through and find the size that's closest to the one you want to make and see how it looks on that particular test knitter. I'm really enjoying. Another reason to go in and look at these early patterns is that there might be people who have written in the notes that there were issues with the pattern and there are corrections, and those are often found early on. So these first couple of pages are going to be helpful for finding those. This particular project right here, I can see that she wrote right in her notes, read the lace chart in all caps. Totally missed the memo about shifting everything over one stitch and had to redo it. This is the kind of stuff that is super helpful to know before you start the pattern. It's so fantastic that people are willing to share this information, take the time to enter it into Ravelry. We're going to talk about that later when we talk about privacy. Another viewer made an even further suggestion that you can use the search bar to search within those projects that you've pulled up. So we've already filtered these projects for helpfulness. Now, let's say we wanted to only see helpful projects where someone had modified this into a short sleeve. We can type with quotations, I'll explain that in a second, short sleeve. The reason I'm putting that in quotations is I want both of those words and I want them together. If I just type in short and sleeve without the quotation marks, it's going to search every instance of the word short and every instance of the word sleeve, and that may or may not be what I'm actually looking for. So we want notes that say short sleeve, quotes, and let's search and watch what happens. Ta-da! We have 3 pages of helpful notes for love note sweaters that have been modified to short sleeves and even cap sleeves in some cases. Here's a nice cap sleeve. That's a cap sleeve. So you see how powerful this search is. There's so many different ways that you can filter down to get the information that you want to see before you make a decision about knitting that pattern, or if you're in the middle of knitting the pattern and you're stuck and you need some help. Okay, let's just pop back into the details page. And I'm going to show you one other fun thing that I had completely forgotten about that a viewer reminded me of, and that is this. On any project details page, if you scroll down right here, there is a link that says people who like this pattern also like, and if you click that, it's going to show you other people's favorites in the same category. So you can see here, so if you like Love Note, you may also like Ranunculus, Soldatna? I'm probably not saying that right. Sorry, Caitlin Hunter. I do love that sweater. The Weekender by Andrea Mowry. These are all very popular. Zweig by Caitlin Hunter. I also love that one. Felix, super popular. Flax and Flax Sock, so Faded by Andrea. So you're getting the idea that people who like the Love Note also have liked these other sweaters. Yeah, this is diving down the rabbit hole territory. And I'm sorry if I send you off on a 3 or 4 hour Ravelry binge just from this one tip. Okay, I'm not really that sorry. You'll have a good time. You will thank me later, or, well, maybe you won't. All right, let's move on now to doing some searches related to starting with a particular yarn. Okay, here we are. We are back in the main pattern search page, the advanced search page. One of the things that I showed in the last Ravelry Tips video, and by the way, if you haven't watched that video, you might want to stop right now and go watch that one and then come back in here, that first one. So there's a link up here somewhere above my head. You can click on that. I'll also put the link down in the description box, which is below the title. You can find lots of links down there to info, including about this lovely sweater that alpaca cardigan that I'm wearing today. I haven't worn this one in a video before, so it was actually cold enough to wear it where I am. All right. One of the things that I talked about in the last video was showing you how to use some of these filters down the side of the advanced search to help narrow your search down. And I had mentioned about the yardage one that I don't use it all that often because I don't actually find it all that helpful. The reason that I said that is that I don't find it all that helpful for searching for sweaters based on the amount of yardage that I have. And that is because there can be a huge range, a yardage range in a sweater pattern. If it goes from an extra small up to perhaps a 70-inch bust, any project that contains any yardage within that range is going to show up for me, regardless of if it's going to be the right amount of yardage for my size or not. It doesn't narrow it down that much. However, someone did point out, and rightly so, that for projects that are not sweaters, this can be a very helpful tool. So we're going to use it right now. I have 2 skeins of this beautiful hand-dyed yarn that my friends at CopperSpoon Dye Company have dyed, and I will definitely put the link to their fabulous dyeing their new dyers this year, and they do just amazing work, absolutely beautiful. This, of course, is called Deep Water, but I did say to Claire the other day that it should be renamed Totally Nicole Blue, correct? So I have 2 skeins of this, which means I have 840 yards, and I want to figure out what I can do with it. So let's do a search and see what we can come up with. I'm going to do several little sneaky searches in here. And including yardage. So we're going to filter it a number of different ways to kind of narrow it down to something that I might actually want to knit. First of all, I'm going to select knitting because I want to knit this lovely fingering weight yarn. I'm going to go to clothing, and I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. I didn't show you this last time, but this is also a cool option for filtering out something you don't want to see. I'm going to say for this particular search that I don't want any clothing. So I'm going to check clothing, and then I'm going to go to accessories, and I'm also going to say I don't want to knit socks, leg warmers, slippers, or any of those things with this yarn either. So I'm also going to check that. Now, I know this seems counterintuitive. Why am I selecting the things I don't want to knit? Okay, well, watch this. If I come over here where it says match any of these, and I click on this, I can change this search parameter from or match any of these items, which would give me any of all clothing and all feet and legs. I can match all, or I can say not. Do not include these in my search. And that's what I'm going to click right now. Boom! Everything that was clothing and foot or leg related is now gone from my search. Pretty nifty, eh? Then I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to tell the filter that I'm using fingering weight yarn. I'm going to scroll down some more to shapes, and I'm going to tell it that I want a rectangle. What I'm really going for here is I think I want to knit this yarn into a big rectangle wrap that I can convert into one of my lovely wearable wrapovers. If you don't know about my wearable wrapovers, there's another link up here somewhere you can go and check those out and see what I mean. So in order to do a wearable wrap over without having to do a whole bunch of math and figuring out, I'm just going to find a pattern that's already a rectangle. So I've selected rectangle right there. And then typical colors used, 1. I've only got 1 color here for the whole thing. So now I've narrowed it down from hundreds of thousands of patterns, millions of patterns, to 2,200 patterns. We're getting a little closer. And now I'm going to go up here and tell it how much yardage I have. By the way, you can move these filters around. If there are particular ones that you like at the top that you use more than others, you can move those up to the top or move others down to the bottom. And how much did I say? Oh yeah, 840 yards. So that's going to be in this range right here, 750 to 900 yards. So we'll select that one. Now we are down to 536 patterns and only 12 pages. So really 12 pages isn't that bad if I wanted to go through and look at them all. These are all the filters, including yardage, that are going to make it possible for me to knit the thing that I'm interested in knitting in this particular yarn. And I scroll through, I look at all these delicious patterns, and look, here's Dark Days. This is my friend Ponnie's pattern right here. This is a fantastic pattern. As you can see, I already own it, I've already favorited it, and it's in my queue. So I could use that I could use this for that pattern, but I already have yarn for that pattern. So however, I do really like the look of this one called Summit. So I'm going to click on it. We're going to take a look at it. Just double check that it's everything I want. It's fingering. It takes 800 to 900 yards. Well, I have 840 yards, so I'm probably good. Comes in lots of languages. We're going to talk about that in a bit too. Happens to be a free pattern because it's part of Knitty's online magazine from way back in 2010. So what are the chances if I had just been browsing through the hot right now, the first, dozen or so pages, I probably would not have found this. But here it is, all the way from the way back of 2010. I've brought it forward, and I think it looks really cool. There are lots of projects. It's got very high ratings. It's knit in a sport weight silk, which is fine. My lovely squishy merino nylon fingering is going to work just fine. And I like this note right here. This stitch pattern looks complex, but is actually deceptively simple. Well, you've got to like that, right? Okay, so this is it. So what I'm going to do first is save it in my favorites because that's where I like to put things. I'm going to put wrap fingering and save it in there. And then I'm going to add it to my queue. I'm going to use stash yarn. I'm going to find my CopperSpoon. There it is, because I've already entered it in my stash. And then I am going to save changes. And now I have found my pattern. I've added my stashed yarn for it, and I've put it in my queue, and everything I need will be there when I need it. Okay, now I have brought us into the search yarns page because another very powerful search in Ravelry is, Oscar, can you not? Is when you have a particular yarn that you're not quite sure what to do with it. It might be a little unusual. It might have an odd colorway. You don't know what it's going to look like when it's knit up. Maybe you've got a gradient like I have here, and it's like, okay, this looks really cool. I really like it, but what does it look like in a project, and what have people used it for, and what was it made for? So we're going to start by searching this particular yarn, and we're going to see where that takes us. So this yarn is called Shades of Merino Cotton, and there it is right there. And we will go search. And this is it right there. So we're going to select this one. It's a discontinued yarn, so I won't be buying any more of that. I have what I have, and that's what I have. We can either look at pattern ideas, and pattern ideas, so this page is going to sort patterns where multiple projects have used this particular yarn. So this Mooster Nix shawl is 28 projects, and we can go in and view those if we want. There's another one by Lana Grossa, where 23 projects use this particular yarn. Dotted Rays, 15 projects have used this yarn. The Virus shawl, you might be familiar with that one. I think I know somebody who crocheted that one. And you get the idea. So you can scroll down and see multiple projects using patterns where multiple people have used this particular yarn to make that pattern. But let's actually go into the projects themselves and see if we can find something in my colorway so that I can see what it looks like knit up. And this colorway is 401. So I'm going to search 401 and see if anything pops up. And there it is. Okay, so here's the yarn that I have. And these are some of the beautiful projects. Look at these. Oh my goodness. I love them all. Look how amazing they are. Oh my. So there you go. There are some incredible ideas for me of projects that I can knit using this odd discontinued yarn that I have in my stash. Oh, I'm pretty excited. I think I better stop searching in here because I'm going to want to cast this on right away, and I have a long queue already. Oh my, okay, but I will remember to come back in here. Look at the gradient. It's just, yeah, it's beautiful. So, yep, I'm very happy with the way this is going to look knit up. Great tip. Thank you, viewer. Thank you, all the viewers who had this particular suggestion about starting with the yarn and searching for projects to see how it would look knit up and in what kind of project. Okay, now I've moved us into my stash section of Ravelry because there are a couple of really good viewer tips about stash management that I didn't get to last time. And the first one is this. When you're entering a yarn into your stash, I did show you when you're putting it in that you can put the color name or the colorway number in this field right here. But what you might also want to do is choose the closest color family. So for instance, let's add green to this one and we'll just save that change. And here's the reason you might want to do this. I've never actually searched my stash this way, but you might have a time when you want to know how much orange do I have in my stash. Then you can go into this search bar and type in orange, and it will pull up all of the orange or orange family related yarns that you have. As you can see, I don't have many. So now by doing this, I can see, I have a little deficiency in my stash here. Perhaps I need to purchase some more orange to round out my color families. The other thing you might consider adding to your yarn information, your stash information, is filling in this information here. I talked about filling in the stored in field so you know where you put it. But the other thing you might want to fill in is the dye lot. And somebody did make a great suggestion for this. There's a couple of good reasons to fill in the dye lot. One is if you start to run low and you know you're going to need more of that yarn, the dye lot will be recorded in here. It'll make it that much easier for you in case you've lost your ball bands, because we all know that happens. You'll know not only exactly which yarn you use because you had it saved in your stash, but you will also know which dye lot you need to match to get more yarn to complete that project. The other use for having the dye lot in here is that back in stash, you can label your yarn, will sell or trade. You can see I don't have any, but let's say, let's just go back. And that is because you can see that I have traded, sold, gifted 155 yarns out of my stash. So it's not like I don't do that. I just don't have any at the moment. But let's pretend that I don't love my, I can't even pretend that I don't love any of these yarns. Okay, let's pretend I don't love this one ball of King Cole weird sock yarn, unusual sock yarn that I have. So I can edit stash. Right now the stash tab is set to in stash. I could change this and set it to will sell or trade. Now, if I had the dye lot in here, if somebody else was in search of this particular yarn because they needed this one ball, they could search by will sell or trade. They could search that yarn through the yarns tab. They could narrow it down to in stashes because it will tell you in the yarn search tab how many stashes it's in, and then you could narrow that search down even more by just looking for stashes that include will sell or trade. And if that person had entered the dye lot number, boom, there's your sought after yarn. You can reach out to that person and ask if they would sell it to you or trade it or send you some. You can either enter the dye lot for your own purposes, or you can enter it because you might someday be able to help another knitter if you do that. And while we're in here and talking about stored in, another very clever viewer suggested that when or if you decide you want to sell or trade your yarn, you might want to add stored in non-smoking home or in plastic bins or no pets or any of that kind of stuff, so that people also have that information when they're out there searching for their desperately needed yarn. See how helpful we can be to each other, for each other, with each other? I don't know. We can just help each other. I have swung us on over now into my projects, and I wanted to show you something really cool that you can do to organize your projects when you have lots of them, which I do. You can use this feature right here. You see up here how I have all of these categories at the top with numbers on them? Those are made by going into this organize. But just before we pop into this organize section, let's go down and look at one of my projects and see the tags that I added when I entered that project. So here's my felted Mobius baskets by Cat Bordy. And here are the tags that I added to this project. You can add more tags. You click Edit Project and go here to Tags and open up this tag section. So these are the tags that I included in this project. I could add more if I want. I added felted, I could add bowl, for instance, or basket. So let's just add a couple extra. We'll say use these tags, and then always save your changes. So now I have all of these tags on this particular project. Okay, now let's go back to the main project page. Now we'll go to organize. And what this is going to show me is all of my projects and their tags. And what it's going to give me the option to do is include these projects in a set. And over on this side are sets, as you can see up here. So I could take this pillow up at the top here, for instance, and add it to a pillow set. I can take the bucket hat and add it to a hat set. I can take the Mobius bag and add it to, what should we call it? Decor or home. And now if I go to my home set, there is my Mobius bag, and also my sun pillow is there as well. And you can always create a new set if you like anytime. So you see, you can really go crazy. Like you can just really organize your projects well so that you can find them quickly when you need to look at them, especially when you have lots of variety. I now have over 300 projects. So rather than searching through all of them, it's a lot faster for me to go in here and go, okay, what have I made for men? These are the things that I have made right there. Which ones are my own designs, aren't related to another pattern? These are my own designs right there. So you can create your own sets, you can add your own tags, you can add your projects to the sets that you create. You can do anything. Ravelry is cool. Next, I want to talk about favorites and bundles, which you can make from your favorites, because I got asked quite a few times about these, and I also got some really good tips about them. But first, before we dive into favorites and bundles, I wanted to show you a thing that I forgot to show you last time about pattern searching. So we're going to go in, do a quick pattern search. We will pick a few things to favorite, or at least one, so that I can tell you about the tips. And then we'll go into the favorites, your favorite section, my favorite section, and we'll look at bundles and create a bundle. Okay, lots of things to do. Let's get started. So we'll go search patterns, go into the advanced search, and let's just say I'm going to look at what's hot right now and see if there's anything on this page that looks interesting to me. So we'll just scroll down here a bit. What do I like the look of? I like the look of this cardigan. Now I'm going to show you something. I'm interested in this cardigan, but I'm not necessarily ready to favorite it or put it in my queue or do anything else like that with it. I just want to come back to it later after I look at some more patterns. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on these three dots right here, pattern options, and I'm going to click the star, remember and compare. Now you'll see it has a star right next to the name. And the other thing, let's see what else I'm in. Oh, I'm always interested in Cheryl Faust. Let's put a remember compare on that. And let's see what else looks good to me. Oh, I really love this field sweater. As you can see, I do. I already have it in my favorites. And I have it in my library. Let's pick something I don't have yet. Let's say I'm interested in this champagne pullover by Sorry Norland. Here we go. So we're going to put that in remember and compare. Okay, now what do I do? How do I go back and see those things that I just remembered? All right, I just moved myself over a little bit. Down here in this bottom corner, you see this box with a star in it. If you click on that box, this box right here with the star in it, if you click on that box, it will take you to your comparing page. And there are those 3 patterns that I just set up for Remember and Compare. Now let's say that I want to take one of these patterns, save it to my favorites, and then put it into a bundle. How about Sari Norland's Champagne Pullover? So let's open that pattern up. And ooh, it's pretty, isn't it? Let's take a close-up of this. Lovely, look at that lace and cable work. Oh yes, that's got Nicole knits all over it. I love it. All right. So let's put this in my favorites. I'm going to click Save in Favorites. Now, while we're in here, there are some tips that viewers gave that I wanted to, I went over them a little bit in the last video, but I really want to reiterate them now and give you some more ideas about what you can put in here to make saving things to your favorites really useful for you when you go back and look in your favorites. And there are 2 fields here that you can add to when at the time you're saving a pattern into your favorites. There's a notes box and there's a tags box. So let's start with the notes. What kind of notes would you put in here and why? One of my viewers had some great ideas for the notes box, and that was to put in the price of the pattern, whether or not she had purchased it, and if she had purchased it, where she was storing the digital pattern. These are all excellent things to put in here. These are also notes that you can add to your queue when you're putting a pattern in the queue, but they're super helpful in the favorites as well. So let's just quickly say this pattern is $5 and that purchased October 2024 and in Rav Library. You might have acquired this particular pattern in a magazine, so you might want to say it's in a magazine, which is on your magazine shelf. It might be in a book. It might be a downloaded pattern you got from somewhere else and it's in a file on your computer. This is where you can make a note about where that pattern is. Tags. Now, tags are super useful, and you can see as soon as I click in here, a bunch of my most recent tags pop up. And these are the kind of tags that I like to include on my patterns. I like to include the category of what it is, the weight of the yarn it is, and then I might add some other detail about it, like whether it's a textured pattern or cables or color work or mosaic or something that can help me sort later to look for patterns that I really liked with those specific attributes. So this is a pullover, clearly. The weight of the yarn for this pullover, if I just pull this over a little bit, it's in a fingering weight plus a lace weight equals DK. So I'm just going to put DK here. And then just because one of the reasons I really like this pattern is there are cables and lace. Tags usually are a single word, so you can compound a word if you want, but generally speaking, you're looking to put a single word in a tag to give it a tag. Right. Single words. Also at this time, I can add this into a bundle that I have already created. So you can see down this side that I already have a Sari Nordland bundle, and that's one that I've been putting patterns into pretty regularly recently. So I could just click there and put this pattern directly in my Sorry Nordland bundle, and let's just do that. There it is. I can look down at my other bundles, see if I want to add it to any of those. And no, I don't think I do at the moment. I can also create a new bundle from inside this Add Favorites box. Let's say I want to create a bundle of cabled sweaters. So I'm going to create a bundle that is cabled cardigans and pullovers. And I'll create that right now, and it is automatically put this pattern into that bundle. Now, any other pattern that I already have in my favorites or that I go to add to my favorites, I will have the option of adding those new patterns into these bundles. So let's save the changes. It's now in favorites. It's noted that right here. And let's go to my favorites and take a look at what's happened here. So when I open my favorites, you'll see my bundles come up first. There's the new bundle I just made, cabled cardigans and pullovers, and you can see that that Sorry Nordland pullover is right there. And I also have this Sorry Nordland bundle down here, and if I open that up, you'll see that's the pullover I just added. Now while we're in here looking at my favorites, you can see over on the side are a whole bunch of tag categories. So these are all tags that I have added to these patterns as I added them into my favorites. So really quickly, I could go down here to crochet and see the patterns the crochet patterns that I have added to my favorites. So right up here, you can see that it is matching for the tag crochet, which is one of the tags I added as I put these patterns into my favorites. And you can see all of the tags that I added as I entered these items are also below. Let's go into the bundles tab for a minute and create a new bundle. And we'll just let's call it Mosaic. We'll create that bundle. It pops up this page that asks me how do I want to add things to this new bundle. So I can do a search. I can go back to the advanced search and find mosaic patterns to add to my bundle. I can search from my favorites. I can copy from another bundle and put it all in here. I can import a tag. I can do all kinds of stuff. Let's search from my favorites and see if I have tagged anything with mosaic. Aha! So here are a whole pile of patterns that I tagged with mosaic, and I can now click. I can select them individually like this, or I can just add them all. Are you sure you want to add all those results to your bundle? Yes, I do. There we go. And we'll just close out of here. And here we are. I have a whole bundle of all of my favorites that contain mosaic colorwork. Isn't that wild? I thought you'd like that. Now we're going to move on to questions and answers. So as well as getting great tips from viewers, I also got quite a few questions about other things you can do in Ravelry that I didn't cover in the last video. One person asked, can you filter a pattern for the language that it's written in? And the answer is yes. So I am here in the advanced search tab. on the advanced search page, set to hot right now because that's usually where I have this page set. But as you can see, you can sort it in lots of different ways. And I'm going to go to the attribute search down the side here. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom where I see there is a language search. If you're not seeing the search box underneath, you just need to click the arrow to drop the box down. You can close up any of these boxes that you don't use. I hardly ever look at difficulty. I hardly ever look at whether it's a Ravelry designer. I don't look at ratings, that kind of thing. So those boxes can all be closed. And here we go. We can take a look at all of the languages. All right, so as soon as I click English, you'll see that the numbers in that language box refreshed themselves. They were set low because I had a limited search in here before I hadn't reset it. So now with the searching all of the patterns, you can see we have 1.2 million patterns in English, 6,000 that are universal, and then all these other languages. So let's say we wanted to look for patterns that were in French. And then we can go up here, and all of these patterns you see here will have a version of the pattern in French that you can purchase or download. All right, I've moved into my own projects page so that we can talk a little bit about privacy, because a few people asked me if they could make their projects or their stash private so that people can't see them. And the answer is no, you can't. You are on what is effectively a social media platform that is designed for people to share and help each other. And sharing is exactly what Ravelry wants to encourage you to do. But I do have a few tricks for you if you do decide that you don't necessarily want to share, but you want to keep a bit of information in the Ravelry database for your own use. One thing you can do is on your project page, I'm just going to open up this page and click Edit Project. You have the option to add a private note. This is something that Ravelry added fairly recently. So you could go in here if there's some information that you wanted to put in about this project, but you don't want it public, you don't want it read by anybody. Maybe you're currently making this as a gift for someone and you just want to put a little note in here about that, but not have it made public at this point. You could put knitting as a gift for my mom. Something like that. They're just, if there's information that you want to keep for yourself, but you don't want others to read, you do have the option of making your notes private. We'll just save that. And now that's a private note and there is no regular note. So in a search for this particular pattern, my project would show up and no notes would be showing. Now, can you take all the rest of this information and click a button and make it private? No, you can't. There are a couple of things that you could do if you didn't want it to link to anything so that it would be much less likely to come up in a search. And that would be, don't link it to the pattern. So we could edit this. We've named the pattern. And here you can see the pattern name that this pattern is linked. We could delete this information and not have it linked to anything. If we don't link it, it's not going to show up on the as a project included with that pattern's information. You could also not put a photo in. That's another option. Unfortunately, the photos are, once they're uploaded, they're public. So if you don't want people to see photos of your projects, just don't add them here, and way less likely that anyone's going to click in to read anything. So if they see your notes, you're not linked to the pattern itself, and you don't have any photos, no one's coming in here to look at what you're doing. Does that make sense? And you can still keep the rest of the information here if you choose. So you could still link your stash to this and keep track of how much yarn you used. You could keep track of what needle you used. You could make notes for yourself, that sort of thing, but it won't show up in a search. But I will say this about that. Remember that the whole point of Ravelry is people generously sharing their knitting, crochet, and other crafting journeys and letting you know what they knit it with, what happened, how it turned out, any notes that they might have. People are very generous with wanting to help others, and that was kind of the whole point of having Ravelry there as a database. So it's for you to keep track of your own information. But when you put information in here, it helps other people. And I had lots of comments about people asking, I wish more people would say which size they made. I wish more people would include exactly how much yarn they used or the kind of yarn they used. That information is super helpful. And I get it. You just might not be interested in inputting all that kind of data on your projects. That's okay. But if you are in here entering information on your projects, just keep in mind that that information is super helpful for people, and maybe just think twice if you were thinking about leaving those fields blank and not filling them in. I'll climb down off my soapbox now and we'll move on. Another question I got asked is it possible to take a project and put it back into the queue if you just wanted to set it aside for a bit? And the answer is no. But you can do this. You can go to your project, click Edit Project, and then change the status from In Progress to Hibernating, and click Save Changes. What will happen is when you go to your projects, it is going to group it together. Generally, Ravelry will group your projects together based on how you ask them to be sorted and how you ask them to be filtered. I can click on filters, and I can go down here and click on hibernating and see which projects I have set into hibernation. You can see they have little zzz symbols on them because they're sleeping. So you can see I have a few projects in here that are sleeping right now. They've been sitting in that sleeping mode for long enough that they are no longer active. So I've removed them out of the WIP category and put them into hibernation. And I did also get asked if I have set a project to frogged, and I have stash yarn noted here. This yarn is linked to my stash. When I set it to frogged, will it put that yarn back in my stash? And the answer is yes. Aren't you happy I got to say yes this time? So yes, if you set a project to frogged, it will reclaim that yarn and put it back into your stash. Pretty cool, hey? Ravelry is cool. I've got one more fun little tip to show you that you might not know about. So yeah, fair to say this one might be a tiny bit secret. This tip is part of the community tab. I realize I haven't really discussed anything about the community tab in either part 1 or part 2. And I suspect I'm going to have to do a part 3 just to cover all of the things that go on in the community tab. So for instance, there are the forums, there are how to use messages, how to find people, how to see what your friends are doing, and groups. Groups is a huge deal. And I can do a whole video just on that. If you'd like to see that, let me know down below, and I'll add a part 3 to this series, because I think there's a lot of fun stuff in there that's worth seeing. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you one cool little tip out of the community box. So we go to the community tab and we're going to go to people, and we're going to scroll down. Here are some new Ravelers. That's kind of interesting. Hey, new Ravelers. New Ravelers joining all the time. And here's a section called Your Neighbors, Ravelers with Similar Taste in Patterns. And check this out. So at the top of my list, there's someone from North Carolina, and they have 105 patterns in common with projects I have made. 80 for this person in New York, 40 for this person in Spokane, 34 for this person in Langley. Langley is just a ferry ride away from me. So you can see these people have also made many, many, many of the same patterns that I have. The other reason is that if we have 30 odd patterns in common, maybe they've made some other things I would really like that I don't know about yet. So if I go and look at their projects, I might find some more things that I really want to make. It's kind of fun, right? So there you have it. More secret Ravelry features and your brilliant tips. Keep those tips coming in the comments, and let me know if there's a feature you'd like me to explore in the next video that's part of the community realm, or even something else that I missed entirely. I'll be happy to throw it in there, what the heck. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you had a good time and got some value out of this. So until next time, keep those needles clicking. I say goodbye, Oscar says goodbye, and go watch part 1 of this Ravelry series. See you next time. Bye.